Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to my introduction to iridology. My name is Brenda, and I'm going to go ahead and share my slideshow here for you and move right through this little presentation that I have for you. And of course, I know a few of you already, so there'll be other people that'll be listening who do not live here, who do not live in the United States, and they'll be listening on their own time. I will send out the recording. Okay, so I'm recording this. I will send you the recording so you can watch it again. You can share it with whoever you want to share it with. Any of your friends, family, colleagues, anybody you know that's interested. I'll put it in the iridology group. Just, get the information out there about iridology. There's so much interest now with people that are willing and interested in improving their health and moving forwards. And iridology is really getting huge. So if you're not already in iridology, I highly recommend it. It's a great science. It's a great practice, and people really value iridology and what it can show. And it's easy. It's easy because you got eyeballs right in front of your face, and no, nobody thinks about that, right? You go in front of the mirror, you wash your face, you take a shower, you put on your mascara, your makeup, whatever. You do your hair. But nobody thinks about, looking at their eyes for anything, anything else. So anyway, this will be the introduction to iridology. There's some of my credentials there. I am a naturopath. I am a certified comprehensive iridology instructor for IPA for levels 1, 2, and 3. And I just got Professor O'Brien Education Mentoring Award, which was very cool, down at IPA in San Diego last month. So can't believe it's already last month. There's my website, my email, and telephone numbers if you want to reach me. We are a sanctioned school by IPA, so we're approved to teach and all that good stuff. So let me give you a little bit of information. First of all, thank you for being here tonight. Look at this great picture. This was sent to me by one of my, isn't that great? This was sent to me by one of my students. And so thank you for being here tonight. I know there's many other things that you could be doing. And so I really appreciate your time listening to me talk about iridology. Okay, so first thing I need to do is go over my disclaimer that Joyful Living Services cannot be held liable for any misuse or malpractice of any techniques taught within this webinar, nor for any injury, suffering, or distress caused by students undertaking the techniques discussed. All students must accept that they are wholly responsible for their actions relating to the practice of iridology and must adhere to the relevant laws in their country and state of residence. Students are responsible for ensuring that they have appropriate liability insurance for practicing in their country and state of residence. Joyful Living Services cannot be held responsible for any advice given by students to members of the public. Students must adhere to their local laws regarding the requirement for registration and/or qualification as an iridologist before suggesting supplements or offering nutritional advice. So there is our disclaimer. And there's me at the top. That's a new picture of me. We just had our headshots taken. And this is an old picture of me down here at the bottom, way back when I volunteered for Dr. Jensen's birthday. So my path in iridology began in 1983 when I had, and actually began a long time before that. My first memory of having any kind of health issues was about when I was 12. That's when I remember digestive problems starting. So my issues started back when I was 12, maybe even before that, but that's my first memory of it. And so when I started dating a guy who knew people that were into alternative health. And that led me to Bernard Jensen. So I thank him for that and all his friends. And I became certified in 1989 by Dr. Jensen and started my career, stayed in touch with them and so on, started my career after that. My mission has been to help others to improve their health. In 2018, I became a member of IPA, and I've been with IPA ever since. So, like I said, comprehensive iridology instructor for levels 1, 2, and 3. I got IPA Instructor of the Year award in 2021. I'm a genomic iridologist. That has to do with MTHFR and methylation. So I've been working with clients with MTHFR and what we can see in the eyes and when the tests come back and so on. So I am in the process of writing an iridology book and working on becoming a fellow. And I am on the board of directors for the California Naturopathic Association, in which we are working to preserve our rights to practice alternative medicine. And so that's really important. I see Elizabeth. Hello, Elizabeth. Nice to see you. And we have somebody else that came on too, somebody with a Samsung phone. Okay. All right. So this is another little something that one of my students sent me, which tells you a lot about my personality. And you see here, good morning, pupils. And then there's good morning, Miss Iris. And I got a kick out of this because when I went to symposium last month, one of the speakers actually used the same comic in their presentation. So it's been going around. All right. So iridology, when it started, we used to think there were only two colors of eyes. We used to think there was only blue and brown. And you can see blue here and you can see brown here. But with research over the years, we have also learned that there are mixed colored eyes. So this is a combination of blue and brown. And everybody has blue eyes. It's just that this pigment overlays here. So this is called the anterior border layer, and this is where the color shows up. This is where you can have pigments like the little black pigments or brown pigments or orange pigments that show up, and different colors will show up in this layer. So when we have an eye that looks blue, we can see all the fibers. When we have an eye that looks brown, it just, to me, kind of has that velvety texture. It's just a true brown color. And then we have mixed. And each eye color has its own set of genetic tendencies. So with somebody that has a blue eye, their genetic tendencies would be different than a mixed eye versus a brown-eyed person. So when we look at the eyes, we can tell this. And so, for instance, this is a blue iris. We know this is a lymphatic iris constitution. And these people people with blue eyes tend to have more respiratory and respiratory lymphatic issues. So typically, they're going to complain about respiratory issues. They're going to complain about problems with their lungs, problems with their sinus, lots of mucus, okay, problems with arthritis, problems with bronchitis or pneumonia and things like that. That's the typical genetic tendencies. And there's other things too. And just because these are genetic tendencies doesn't mean that blue-eyed people are going to have problems with these areas. But typically, when I see a client with blue eyes and I ask them, they're typically going to say, yes, these are the general areas that they have problems with throughout their life. So then, there's different patterns. Everybody has a different pattern in their eye. And we learn about those. Those are called subtypes. So there's subtypes based on the structure of the eye, based on the color of the eye. And so there's so many things to learn. There's so many things to learn about a person. This is a mixed eye, and a mixed eye is an eye where you can actually see the blue underneath those layers of pigments. And so here you can see a lot of orange in this eye here. And then underneath here, it kind of looks a little bit green under here. So that's the blue underneath. So all this orange color here and yellow color is all sitting on top on what's called that anterior border layer. And underneath it's blue. These people tend to typically have somebody with blue eyes in their family and somebody with brown eyes in their family. Okay. And these people their genetic tendencies usually have to do with digestion. Okay, anything having to do with the liver, the gallbladder, the colon, the stomach, the pancreas. Okay, that's usually typical. So if you ask them, if they have trouble digesting, or if they eat fats, if it sits in their stomach for a long period of time, if they have trouble with burping or gas or, IBS or any of these things, usually there are going to be, some positive answers in there. And so, usually with the mixed biliary eye, biliary stands for bile, which has to do with the liver and the gallbladder. Okay, so usually with these people, lots of work on digestion, lots of work on digestion. And here we have a brown eye, a true brown eye. This is called hematogenic. And brown-eyed people Typically, it usually has to do with the glands. It has to do with the blood. Sometimes it can have to do with the bones. A lot of people that have brown eyes tend to be anemic. A lot of times there's issues with circulation. There could be problems with cholesterol, triglyceride balance, things like that. We can have that in any eye type, but it really shows up a lot with brown-eyed people. And so not only are we looking for the structure of the eye to see how strong a person is genetically, but we're also looking at those genetic tendencies to say, hey, these are genetic tendencies. Let's see, how your body's doing, what's going on with your body, and how can we help you to improve your health if you're having some issues. So the eyes are really a great place to learn about what's going on. So the definition, what is iridology? Iridology is a study of the color and the structure of the iris of the eye as it relates to the genetic predisposition and health of the body systems. So we are not diagnosing from the eye. Long time ago, that's what we used to do. We used to look at the eye and say, well, you have this and you have that and you have this and you have that. We can't do that. We're not doctors. And why would we want to do that anyway? We do not diagnose. We do not diagnose. And that's one of the issues that we've been dealing with the naturopathic doctors, because they came back and said that people in iridology are diagnosing, and they wanted to shut iridology down. So we've been really working hard at teaching them that iridology does not diagnose. We do not diagnose. We can't diagnose. And why would we anyway? We're not doctors. Okay, so we look at the color, we look at the structure, and how it relates to the genetic predisposition and the health of the body systems. So how is it used? Well, by looking at the eye, we can see these genetic tendencies. And by learning about your genetic tendencies, you can learn what would be best for you to eat, drink, type of exercise that's best for you, the supplements, your lifestyle, anything else that can help you to live comfortably in your body, whether it be your job, or things that you do or things that you don't do that would be beneficial for you to do. There's so many aspects. Okay, so iridology doesn't name any diseases, but it shows us what areas need nurture or what body systems
only that many.
Okay, so what can it show us? It can show us inherent strengths and deficiencies of organs, glands, and tissues. It can show us potential ability of an organ to react to illness, familial patterns of various syndromes and pathologies, and certain foods that a person could have difficulty digesting or utilizing. It can also show us areas of the spine that may have subluxations, potential central and autonomic nervous system imbalances, potential circulatory disturbances. Notice the word potential connective tissue weaknesses, potential for glandular deficiencies, potential for high uric acid levels, serum cholesterol levels, and lymphatic congestion. And the reason that everything says potential, may have, possibly, is because we can't diagnose from the eye. Okay, we can possibly see some of these issues, and then there needs to be further tests, more accurate tests, whether it be blood tests or x-rays or whatever tests may need to be done to find out if there are such issues. Okay, so what can't iridology show? It cannot diagnose or give the name of any disease a person may have or have had. It cannot identify pathology. It cannot determine if a person has had surgery. It cannot indicate precise blood pressure levels. And it cannot determine if a person has parasites or indicate the presence of yeast infections. Now, we used to think that we could see parasites from the iris, but we have since learned that we cannot see parasites from the iris. We cannot determine if a person has parasites. Will there be a replay? Oh, yeah, I'm recording it, so you'll get the recording. Okay, so it cannot determine if a person has parasites or indicate the presence of yeast infections. There's other tests to do that if you want to find out these things. It cannot confirm the presence of viruses, germ life, or bacterial invasion. It cannot determine if a woman is pregnant or has had an abortion. Although I'll tell you that there are some people that want to know while they're pregnant if they're carrying a male or a female. And so that's been kind of interesting playing with that. But still, we can't rely on that. We can't indicate whether a tumor is present, what size it may be, show whether or not a person has kidney stones or gallstones. Now, there are different types of iridology. So if you go and learn from some of these other iridologists, they can't tell you that there's kidney stones, but there are these genetic tendencies that can show up in the kidney reaction fields that can lead you to believe that there may have been kidney stones. Let's put it that way. So this is something that we really are careful with, is the wording with iridology. And you're going to hear me say this a lot: maybe, possibly, could be. And that's because we're under a lot of scrutiny. So iridology cannot give exact cholesterol or uric acid levels in the body, determine whether or not hemorrhage exists, where it's located, unless it's located in the visible layers of the eye, so in the sclera, okay? It can't show if arteries are blocked or hardened, though a potential may be seen in the sclera. So some of these things that I'm listed, we cannot see in the iris, but there can be indications in the sclera. And so sclerology is another study that complements iridology, which is really important. It cannot distinguish the gender or age of a person, predict a person's lifespan, or impending time of death. I don't think we want to know that anyway. So it cannot tell whether or not a person needs surgery. It can't locate a specific tooth that may be problematic, but there's other things that can, right? And it cannot show if a person has ingested poison or been bitten by a poisonous spider or snake. So there are lots of other tests that can be used to determine all of these things that iridology cannot tell us. And so we're very, very careful with this legal wording. Okay, iridology does not diagnose, but instead analyzes or assesses predispositions and genetic inheritance. Very important. And, you know, we are very careful. You know, when you stand in front of somebody, once you've learned iridology, that's it. You stand in front of them, 2 seconds, you know all about them. It takes very little amount of time. Once you stand in front of somebody and you look at their eye, if you look at their eye and you go, okay, that person has a blue eye, you already know a lot about that person. And if you're close enough to them, you can actually see the structure of their eye. You can learn a lot about their personality. You can learn a lot about things they should and shouldn't eat, or couldn't eat, or things they should. And so you have to be very careful, very, very careful. Okay, so it's very important when you learn iridology and you're talking to somebody, that you don't do iridology, that you don't sit there and analyze them, because really it's an invasion of personal space. And you know, that's for them to say, hey, I want you to look at my eyes. I want you to do an analysis for me. Okay, so it's important to look at the eyes with reverence, honor, and respect. And when you are looking at an iris, you're looking at more than just their iris. You're really looking at the whole person. You're looking at them physically, emotionally, spiritually, you know, all of the above. So as far as IPA is concerned, we're all very dedicated and very, very careful with who we come into contact with and how we treat our clients. So I thought I'd give you a little bit here about a little bit of history, just a little bit of history. And, you know, I had somebody ask me recently where iridology came from. Most people know Bernard Jensen. That's the name that comes up, Dr. Jensen. But, you know, iridology started a long time ago. And it's in Australia, China, Egypt, Greece, India, Italy, Europe, and here in America. And when I started doing some studies, I found this information here. So this is King Tut, and it's thought that in 1922, this archaeologist Howard Carter discovered silver plates while exploring King Tut's tomb. And it's thought that the silver plates are some of the first lessons of iridology dating back thousands of years in Egypt. And, you know, from there, it went to Africa, to Babylon, Tibet, China, Europe, and other regions. If you are really interested in history and you want to do some history on iridology, you want to do some research on the history, you will find so much information. You know, one of my graduates, Ivana, she just was approved as an instructor last month down at the conference. And she put a presentation together on the history of iridology, and she went much deeper than I did. So she, she was able to find even more information than, and I didn't put a lot in, but she was able to find out even more information. So if history is something that you're really interested in, you can do a lot of research and learn a lot about the history of iridology. This is Dr. Ignaz von Petzli, and he was in Budapest, Hungary. He is known as the father of Western iridology. So there's the owl, and the whole story of the owl is that this owl got trapped in his tree, and when he went to free the owl's leg broke. The owl stuck around, and he mended his leg, and this line formed in the bottom part of the owl's iris, which happens to be the lower part of the body. And of course, there at 6 o'clock, that is the leg reaction field. So unfortunately, they're kind of questioning this now. Did it really happen? Nobody knows, and nobody's been able to replicate it. So whether it happened or not, we'll say yes, but who knows? But the key here is that he published a book called The Discoveries in the Field of Natural Science and Medicine, a guide to the study and diagnosis from the eye. Okay, so they used to use that word diagnosis. We can't use that, and we don't diagnose. And for those of you that know and love Dr. Jensen, this is him. And he was my teacher. And it's so funny because I went down and took his class. I didn't even know who he was when I took his class. I didn't go down there to learn with him. I was sick, and I saw an iridologist, and they helped me, and Chris helped me. And I sent some friends to him, and they got help, and I wanted to learn a little bit more about it. It's like, what is iridology? And Chris told me that Dr. Jensen teaches down in Escondido, and so I called down there, and it just so happened that he was teaching a class in that August, and I signed up for his beginning class, and I loved it. So I stayed for his advanced class, and I got certified. And then I started getting all kinds of clients from them. And here I am over 30 years later, and I'm still doing iridology. So this has been my passion for a very long time. But, I went down to the Hidden Valley Ranch and got to go down there and take his classes. And he really was a really wonderful person. He was really amazing. So he pioneered the science of iridology in the United States, and he wrote the book, The Science and Practice of Iridology. Before he passed, he asked Ellen Jensen to continue his studies. Okay, and she is his daughter-in-law. So she has then created IPA. So even though, Dr. Jensen's not around anymore, it's still, is still connected to him through Ellen. So she still teaches through IPA. Okay, so I thought I'd throw a couple charts in here. Here's one of the very first iridology charts, and this is by Ignaz von Petzli. And even here, he's got lung here, he's got back here, you can see foot here, knee. So even then, all those years ago, they were able to start creating this chart of what they were seeing, based on, symptoms people had, based on what was going on in their body, and they were able to start forming the chart, which was, pretty amazing. So this is IPA here. And this was, oops, I didn't want to do that. Let me go back. This was one of the conferences that we had. These were all the instructors at the time, and I'm right there. And so this was an instructor meeting here that we had. So I teach for IPA, which is the International Iridology Practitioners Association. And their mission and vision is basically to hold a very high standard for iridology. It was founded for the purpose of increasing and communicating knowledge concerning the art and science of iridology, and to provide a forum for the exchange of information and research with the goal of promoting excellent international iridology standards. Really, one of the main things is to stop diagnosing from the eyes. IPA was formed to make sure to teach everybody that iridology is all about learning people's genetic tendencies and to not diagnose from the eyes. Okay, and also the mission is to see iridology utilized as an assessment tool, and this would be wonderful, wouldn't it? In all branches of medicine, both alternative and allopathic, in all countries, and made readily available to every man, woman, and child. That is quite a dream, and that's a huge goal. That is a huge goal, and it would be wonderful. So This is Ellen's chart, and you can see how, I've got so many examples of charts as it's gone forwards. But this is Ellen's chart, and it was, of course, developed by Dr. Jensen, and it was revised by Ellen. So I was going to go ahead and explain this just a little bit to you here, how it works. So it works just like the body. So if you're not familiar with iridology, it works just like the body. The right iris shows the right side of the body, and the left iris shows the left side of the body. Here we have the pupil, so the right pupil and the left pupil. Okay, so at the center of your body, you have your digestive system, right? So here we have the right side of the small intestines and the left side of the small intestines. So it comes down. Then we have the cecum that goes across here. We have the ascending colon on the right. Transverse colon goes across the belly button here. Okay, then it goes down the descending on your left, across the sigmoid and out. Okay, on the outside of your body, you have your skin, right? And so this dark blue ring here, this is the skin. Okay, this is the left side of the skin, the right side of the skin. Inside here, we have the lymph and circulatory system. Okay, so here's the circulation and the lymph system. Okay, at the top of the body, you have your head, right? You have your head, your brain, your sinuses. Okay, so this from 11 to 1 here, this is the brain. Here's the sinuses. Here's the pituitary, pineal, the pons, and so on. Okay, this is on the left side, this is on the right side. At the bottom of your body is the lower part of your body. Okay, and down here, so we have the hip, the thigh, the knee, the foot, lower glands here. We have the adrenals, we have the kidneys, pelvis, we have the ovaries and testes. Okay, we have the prostate, uterus, penis, vagina, anus, rectum, and so on. So this is the left side and this is the right side. And then everything else is in between. So here's the spine. This is the right side of the spine, the left side of the spine. Here we have the thyroid over here. This is the lungs and the breast. Here we have the upper breast. Here we have the lower breast, these lines. These are the ribs, pleura. This little circle here is the nipple. Okay, and the bronchioles. Anything that's in the center of the body is going to show up on both eyes. So we have the heart here on the left, and then it also shows up here on the right. Okay, then let's see, what else do we have? We have all kinds of things in here. Pancreas, the pancreas shows up at 2, 4, 8, and 10 o'clock in both eyes. Here we have the liver, here's the gallbladder. We have the liver here also. We have the liver here. Here's a spleen. And the reason that some of these things are in multiple areas is because this is where the markings have been found to show up in the iris. And that's why. Okay, the liver also is on the right side, but it has been shown that when there are issues, it shows up in various areas of the iris. Now, let me see what else. So that is basically, everything else shows up in between here. So you can see how the chart is set up, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. So we can use it as a clock all the way back around. And then it's also in sections here. So the brain, the neck, the lung, the throat, the upper abdomen, lower abdomen, pelvis, lower back, upper back, throat, and face and brain. Okay, and so when we're looking at the eyes, we're looking at many things. We're looking at the fiber structure. We're looking at how tight the fiber structure is, how loose the fiber structure is. We're looking for pigments and where they show up. We're looking for things that look like little holes in the iris. We're looking for various rings. Okay, we're looking for many, many, many things. And depending on where those land on the iris, that can show us areas that may need nurturing, may not be absorbing nutrients as well as they should, may not be releasing toxins as well as they should. Okay, so there's a lot to learn. And that also tells us, what looks like genetically is functioning the way that it should be functioning. Okay, there's also canine and feline iridology. There's lots of people have dogs and cats and love their dogs and cats, right? And we don't want to see any of our animals, get sick and die. And so iridology is a great way to help our friends, our cats and dogs and help people that have them. So there's a huge business around feline and canine iridology. And the chart is similar, where the digestive system is in the center and the brain's at the top and the legs at the bottom, and very, very similar. But this is the chart for that. Mercedes Colburn teaches canine and feline iridology. She's here in California. And IPA doesn't carry it yet. I do carry the course, and people take the courses to learn. And I do have people that contact me that, their dog or cat is having problems, and it can be done remotely, just like iridology on humans. So if that's something you're interested in helping, dogs and cats, you can do that too, as well as horses. And so here we have a chart on equine iridology, and that's quite a bit different. The pupils go side to side, and they're quite a bit different. But there are people that do equine iridology and take pictures of the horse's eyes and study them and help them. My cousin is in Texas, and she works with essential oils. She works with essential oils with horses and does horse massage, and there is somebody there that also does equine iridology. So, there's all kinds of things we could do for animals as well. So let me show you a couple of markings that can show up in the eye. So this is called a circulatory ring, and that's this blue ring here that goes on the outside, the perimeter of the iris. We used to know this is what we used to call it as venous congestion. And usually, or a lot of times, people that have this ring, and it doesn't matter if they have blue eyes, mixed eyes, or brown eyes, it makes no difference. Any color eye person can have this ring. This shows up on the sclera, so it's on the outside of the iris. And it usually has to do with cold hands and cold feet. It can have to do with somebody that maybe is anemic. It can have to do with people that have numbing in the extremities, problems with their feet and so on, tingling in the fingers, problems like that. So just because we see a marking in the eye does not mean that there's a problem. So that's really important to understand that, because we are not diagnosing from the eye, and a lot of it's genetic. Okay, a lot of it's coming from mom and dad, grandma and grandpa, and great grandma and great grandpa. So just because there is a marking in the eye does not mean, that the person that we're looking at their eye has a problem at this time. It could be genetic. Okay, it could be, it's a genetic tendency. And maybe the way that the person is eating right now, they're eating really good. Maybe they're eating for their blood type, or they're taking whatever supplements they need, that they've learned that they need to help their body to detox properly or absorb better, or whatever they're doing, and they don't have any problems with this, and that's fine. They still just need to know that it is a genetic tendency. And they could have a problem if maybe they weren't doing what they're doing. So a lot of it has to do with what they're doing. Pigmentation along the limbus, yes, out here it is. But this is supposed to be natural in a brown eye. I still don't like to see this, because a brown and orange in a brown eye on the sclera has to do with liver anyway. So, but yes, that is in the limbus. Yep. Okay. So contraction furrows. We know these as stress rings, nerve rings, anxiety rings. We call them contraction furrows because that's how they behave. The pupil closes and it constricts and expands at a very high rate. And these are genetic. They don't seem to go away. So what they do is they will get bright, and then they'll calm down, and they'll get bright and they'll calm down. And it also depends on how many rings this person will have. This person has, I think they have 5 or 6 rings. So in the chart, if you remember the chart that I showed you, all of the organs and the glands, right, are here, and the immune system is here, right? The lymph is here, and circulation's out here. And so what this tells me is that wherever any of these contraction furrows are, it can affect all of the organs and all the glands and the lymph and the skin. So if these contraction furrows here are all the way out here in the skin reaction field, then that person could break out on their skin when they get stressed. Okay, they could break out on their face or whatever. Okay, if they get stressed and it's in the lymph, then it can cause problems with the lymph and the immune system. If it goes through the muscles here, this is the muscles in here, then maybe the person, when they get tense and they get stressed out, they will tense their muscles and they get a lot of muscle pain. Okay, so helping people with these contraction furrows figure out what to do when they get stressed, or how to work with their body, how to relax, how to say no, to things and not take on too many responsibilities and take on too much stuff is what I call it. So, but these are contraction furrows here. One thing spiritual, Linnea, I do not get into spiritual with anybody. I don't do that. There are iridologists that do that, but I do not. I will do personality. I get into personality with people, and that is based on the collarette here, and also based on some of the other markings. But I really am not comfortable working with spiritual with my clients, so I don't do that. Okay. Let's see. Let's see, what else do I want to tell you about that? Okay, so nerve stress, people that have anxiety, things like that. This can show up. Okay, these contraction furrows can show up. Lipemic diathesis. This is a ring. Lipemic stands for fats, and diathesis stands for the predisposition to high fats in the blood. Okay. And so when we see this, a lot of times we think of high cholesterol, high triglycerides. We think of, possibility of hardening the arteries. We think of, the possibility of stroke or heart attacks and all of those kinds of things. But just because somebody has this marking in their eye does not mean that they have those problems. Okay. When we used to, like I said, in the old days, we used to look at this eye and that's what we would think. But this also has to do with sugar. So if somebody is pre-diabetic or has hypoglycemia or they're diabetic, this has to do with possibility of sugar metabolism. This has to do with minerals. This has to do with high blood pressure, low blood pressure. Okay, and so if a client comes to me with this marking in their eye, I am going to run tests or look at tests that they've already had. And I actually do have a client, actually this is one of my clients, but I do have a client that has one of these rings in their eye, and they have, everything came back fine. All their blood work came back fine. Their blood pressure's fine. Their blood sugar's fine. A1C, glucose, everything is fine. They have a really great diet. They exercise all the time, do everything, pretty healthy person. But when learning the history of the family, both the mom and the dad had cardiovascular problems. Okay, so that is why we do not diagnose from the eye, is because we can't say, hey, you've got this ring, therefore you have this, and this. We cannot tell. We have to look further. It is a predisposition towards it. A corneal arcus is when there's this arc up here at the top, and that can have to do with memory, so as people get older, a lot of times they have trouble coming up with words or remembering things. And so that can have to do with, issues with memory, issues with getting blood up in circulation into the head. And it can have to do with balance and so many things. So just from looking at that, we cannot, we can't say, boom, you have this. Also, sleep apnea. Okay, this can be related to sleep apnea. So, asking a person that we see this, do you snore? Well, some people wouldn't even know if they do, and other people wouldn't admit it. And so we wouldn't know if they had sleep apnea unless they went through a sleep test. So there's lots of things that we can see in the eye, lots of markings that show up in the eye. But to be able to say, definitely, this is what it is, and you have it, we can't do that. We cannot do that. There's no diagnosing. We can't do that. Okay, scurf rim. Here's another marking that's very, very common. And, you know, this person from far away, they look like they took a pencil and outlined their eye. It's so pretty, so pretty. But this is the skin, okay? This is the skin reaction field here. And notice the word reaction field that I keep saying, skin reaction field or kidney reaction field or lung reaction field. That's because we can't see the organ when we look at the eye. So, you know, I could say, well, the heart, which really the heart would be over here, you know, but we can't see the heart because the only way to see the heart is if I was a surgeon. Okay, we can, when we're looking at, when we're talking about iridology, we are looking at the reaction from that organ. That's what we're looking at. Okay, it's the reaction from the organ. Anyway, this is the skin zone here. And what you're seeing here is you're seeing a thinning of these fibers. So we used to believe that somebody had a scurf rim, they could skin brush for a year and it would go away. But that's not the case. This really doesn't go away because it's a thinning of the iris fibers. So the very back bottom layer of the iris is supposed to be black, the very bottom layer. And that's what you're looking at here. You're looking at the bottom layer of the iris. So all of this yellow and orange in here, this is sitting on top. This is on that anterior border layer on the very top. And so when you look down into this little lacuna right here, or looking down, you're looking down through the layers of the iris to the bottom layer. So that's what you're seeing here is this bottom layer. But that still can still tell us maybe their skin isn't breathing as well as it should. You know, maybe they need to do some dry skin brushing. Maybe they need to improve their circulation, you know, to the skin. Maybe they need to help the body. You know, maybe they need to help the kidneys. Okay, because the skin is the third kidney. So that maybe they need to improve the elimination through the skin and so on. So there's lots of things, lots of things. Okay, well, so this is the end of my talk here. And I do have a class starting actually tomorrow. Starts tomorrow morning, and it is live on Zoom from 8 to 10 a.m. on Tuesday and Thursday mornings, Pacific Standard Time. It is recorded. So if you or anybody else wants to take a certification course and are not in our time zone or in another country and you want to take it, everything's recorded. So we have lots of students that take the classes on their own time. And there's 2 links to sign up if that is something that you are interested in doing. And I also do iridology sessions. You know, that's the other thing. If you do iridology, you can do it remotely. You don't have to have a person sitting in front of you. As long as they can send you pictures of their eyes that are clear, you can always do remote iridology. It's easy. I just have people send me pictures. I have them fill out my waiver and my intake form. Once I have everything I need, I hold a Zoom and we hold a Zoom. I can hold a Zoom anywhere in the world and offer iridology anywhere. So that is something that is available. And then I also do Zytoscans, so I can do that as well remotely. Okay, there's my contact information, my email and my phone number. So does anybody have any questions? Somebody's got to have a question.
Like,
Like, do you have a
what
question?
is the idea?
I mean, I answered everybody's questions. Deborah, do you have a question? You're muted.
So what would be the benefits? I mean, it kind of gives you, if things line up with your current symptoms, then you would follow. I mean, you would give some suggestions for
Right.
diet
So
or exercise or a plan.
the benefit of iridology is to help people to learn what their genetic predispositions are. And, you know, most people eat what they like. They eat whatever is in front of them or whatever they can buy. You know, they have some type of health issue And at least most people come to me, they're on meds and they have some kind of health issue that they're working on that's not getting better. And they want to know, well, okay, how can I improve my health? So iridology is really great for teaching people what their genetic predispositions are. And then the sclera tells us what's going on right now. So you put those two things together and you've got a really good picture. And, sometimes it's really great because people think, well, the reason I have such and such a problem is because of what I've done in my life. And then, we look at their eyes and we see that it's genetic. And they're like, okay, so this isn't what I've eaten or smoked or ate or drank or whatever. This is genetic. So how do I change that? How do I improve my health so that I no longer am suffering from, or the other thing is, okay, so I don't have this problem now. My parents did. How do I make sure, what do I need to do now so that I don't have this later on in my life? Right? So it's really a great way to work with your health so that, when you're 90 years old, you're not hunched over and miserable, right? You're eating right, you're eating right for you, for your body, because we're all different. Liz.
Uh, I was gonna say, so it's cool that you can, tell people what they're predisposed to based on genetics. So is it more of like a one and done kind of thing? Because once they have that knowledge, then it's pretty much like, okay, this is the representation of what the iris looks like. This is what you're predisposed to. These are suggestions that you can do given that information. But is it the kind of thing where once people implement different suggestions, will things change the way they can see that it's changed over time? Or is it like, this is what it is, and that's the presentation?
It's a little bit of both. So the pupil changes, all right? And I didn't talk about this. The pupil changes. The pupil changes its size, right? It'll contract and it'll expand. So let's say, for instance, you have somebody come in that has really large pupils, okay, which tells you, hey, adrenal fatigue, okay, and so their eye is going to look a certain way. So you're going to be working with them and helping them to improve and build their adrenals, and then their pupil is going to shrink down. And let's say they have some flattening in their pupil, okay, they have areas of the pupil that are flattened. That will change, okay, that'll change as they improve the health of their spine. The pupils will become round, okay. You can see certain changes. You can see those contraction furrows mellow out or get brighter. You can see the rings get thicker, okay, as you age. A lot of times you'll get more pigments as you age. So depending on where those pigments land, that will tell people, okay, so now I have this orange pigment that's landed in my right lung, let's say, in the lung reaction field. What do I need to do so that doesn't become a problem? So the eye does change. Usually the structure is not going to change. The structure of
So
the eye.
once that pigmentation area has presented itself, it's not like it's going to dissipate once they make a change to their diet or whatever the case may be.
No, it doesn't usually go away. I have had a couple clients where it has, and there are certain medications that pigments can show up in the eye and then leave, but usually the pigments don't change. Usually you actually accumulate more pigments as you age.
Because I'm an optometrist, so it's interesting to me because, I'm looking at the eye all the time. I mean, that's what I do on a daily basis. So same kind of thing with the back of the eye, the retina, the vessel presentation in someone that's hypertensive is always going to look like that, even if they're under good controlled medications or whatever the case may be. Once the vessels look a certain way, they stay like that. So it's a cool tool to use to be able to see things, but then I wish that they would change based on changes that people do, because you almost feel like you're sentencing them to a propensity towards something, and unless they make changes, but it'd be nice if the physical presentation of the iris would change in conjunction with that.
Well, okay, I can give you an example. I've got a lady that I've been seeing for let's see, about 2 years. Okay. And so she originally came in to see me because she had been diagnosed with a couple of nasty things, nasty diseases. Okay. And she went through treatment for these things, and she decided that she never wanted to go through that kind of treatment again. And she was having some symptoms in the same areas, and she wanted to make sure that she didn't have to go through that again. Okay. And so I kind of look at the body as sort of like what Shrek says. It's kind of like an onion, it's in layers, right? We have layers. I'm sure you all know who Shrek is, right? And so he talks about the body, you know, how we're in layers, right? And so when we start working on the body, you know, we're going to look at the eye and we're going to pick out what stands out the most. If any of you are in my Iridology Facebook group, you'll notice that's what I do. I'll give people a couple of comments. This is what stands out. And that's what's the most important thing. You work on that first. Okay. So you start going through the layers. Okay. And then you go back to the eye. Okay. Maybe that problem that she had when she originally came to me, that's no longer a problem. The blood tests are coming back good. The test that she had came back good. Okay, but now something else shows up. So we're going to go back to the eye, and we're going to look at the iris again, and we're going to see, okay, so what shows up there in that area? And then at the same time, we're going to look at the sclera and say, what's showing up in the sclera? Okay, because the sclera shows what's going on now, which works really well together because we can see the genetic component and what's happening right now. And the sclera changes based on what a person is doing, okay, how they're improving and what they're doing. So yeah, so I will go back to that iris, and I'll go back to the pupil, look at the pupil, go back to the rings, see, you know, what's going on. So iridology is not just a one-time appointment. It's actually and actually Laura's here. So Laura, her pupils changed. So we retook her pictures and she had some flattening in one of her pupils. And then when we retook her pictures, her pupil was round. And so there's lots of things to see with iridology. I hope that might be a really long way to explain it, but it's kind of my process. And
No, that's good. Thank you.
okay, you're welcome. Yolanda, you have a question?
So with the laclunas, when a lacuna shows up, if it's not deeply entrenched, because I had looked in one of my customers' eyes, and he had one, and it was real light, but it was in there in the kidney part. But he had just went to a kidney doctor, and he had did some tests and all that, but they was wondering was something going on, and it was okay. But I asked him on the emotional part of it, and he was because I got Tony Miller's information, and I, got her classes and stuff. So I saw that, and he resonated with the emotional part. So I guess that's why the lacuna was in there. I noticed it. It was a marking, but it wasn't the sclera. It wasn't nothing pointing to it, but it was not deeply entrenched. But is there something that maybe I should see him some more, like in every year or something, to see if it gets deeper? Because then he could pose a problem in that area. Because right now it was a marking, but it wasn't as entrenched as somebody like my aunt. My mom has one, like my cousin, she has one in her leg because she broke her ankle and her leg like 3 years ago, and it's right in that spot, and it's deeply entrenched. You get what I'm saying? So it just seems like the deeper the lacuna, it just seems like it's a little bit more larger, Am I?
Well, you're going through you're going deeper into the layers. So I mean, if it was my client, I'd be working with them with their emotions. I'd be working with them with the charts, and I work with the Zyto with the emotions to see where the emotions are held, because under every physical ailment, there's always unresolved emotions. I work with Louise Hay. I work with some other people, and I work with some people here that deal with trauma. And because if there's issues, if there's a physical issue with the kidney, then there's going to be an emotional component there. And
Okay.
if the person has If the person has a lacuna in the kidney reaction field, that's showing me that they have probably, maybe some genetic tendency there, okay? And coming down from, if it's on the right, it's from dad, if it's on the left, it's from mom, coming down
Yeah.
through the family. And then, depending on, what emotions they're holding on to, there's that component as well, right?
Okay, and I got Louise Hay's book, and then I was a student of metaphysics, so I've learned, through permanent healing, and it talks about the emotion of the liver and all that stuff, the frustration and all that. So, and I talked to him about that, and he resonated with it. But like I said, I have to work with him some more. But I kind of felt that, and for me, I have a lot of them in my brain sector because I had PTSD. So. I'm very familiar with that.
Right, right, right. Okay, anything else? Deborah?
Last time I thought you were gonna get started with the blood diagnosis or
You
the
mean
blood, checking the blood.
the live blood? Yeah, we do that.
Yeah, that you have that. And what can that show? Or is that off topic, maybe?
Uh, Gosh, that shows all
Or
kinds of
basically,
things. That shows all, I can talk about it for a minute. That shows you, we see the normal blood cells. We see, if somebody's anemic, we can see if somebody is acidic, if there is a tendency for stones like kidney stones or uric acid, we can see. We can see if somehow quickly somebody's blood is thickening. We can see the lymphocytes. We can see the leukocytes, lymphocytes, chenocytes. We can see a lot of things in the blood. Yeah. And it really does complement iridology. So I've run iridology, Zyto, and the live and dry blood on a client, and they really all complement each other. They just all give you a little bit different, because the blood is like right now, right?
yeah,
And so, yeah. And then based on that, then you can look at, okay, so if the person, if all their cells are kind of clumping together, if, and they're acidic, well, then, to talk to them about maybe changing their diet or, checking their acidity and their pH and working with their pH. And then you have them come back and see if it's better, right?
yeah. Okay.
Or if the blood, when we do the live blood, it's it's not supposed to really start showing fibrin for about 15 minutes. And if it starts showing fibrin sooner than that, then we know that it's thickening a little bit too soon. And so then you've got to work with the person, with that, or if the cells look good, you can see allergy, you can see all kinds of things. There again, we're not really supposed to diagnose from the blood either, right? But
Right.
but we have the information that we can help somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't been in I think it's been 2 years now. So
Oh, I know. I haven't seen you
time.
here for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm doing hair analysis too, which is really good. So if any of you are interested in doing hair analysis, you can do that too. And that is great for showing heavy metals. Usually we can see some sign of that around the pupil, but if you do, you got to get the hair that's not colored and not permed. So usually in the back here, and you can send it into the lab. You've got to be a naturopath or, somebody else that's licensed. And it comes back and tells you a lot about the heavy metals and can tells you about hormone imbalances and, lots of different things. So that's another tool. Any kind of tools that you use that complement iridology or anything else that you're doing is great, right? So. Yeah.
Can I say something off topic? I'm a spiritualist, and they about 100 years ago, this person did spirit art, and so they would just sit down, and in a minute they'd draw the person with spirit assistance, apparently. But they checked the iris, the iridology of this person, and even in the spirit art, it was accurate to be able to diagnose what problem they had and died from. So I thought that was kind of interesting use of iridology.
Yeah, yeah, that is very interesting.
Uh.
Yeah, and you just use that word. That word is a scary word in iridology. Diagnose. We don't use that word at all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, you've been bullied into it.
Been bullied into it. Yeah, and we just had to go around with the naturopathic doctors, so we got to be careful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Because we're at 7 o'clock here, my time.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you for being
Thank you.
here. It's fun. It's not fun if there's nobody here. Okay, so I'm gonna I'll download this and I'll send it out to everybody tomorrow, and you guys can share it if you want. And if anybody's here or anybody watches this that wants to take the class, let me know, and then we'll just move forwards.
Hey,
Thank
thank
you.
Okay, hope you all have a really great
Thank
night.
you so long.
Thank you.
To
Have a
talk
good
to
night.
you.
Good night. Thank you.
Zyto.
Good night.
I'll
I'm not
stay
going.
on.